Hello students, good afternoon. This is Dr. Bijendra Jha and today I will discuss PSIR Paper 2 Section A, and if time will allow I will also discuss Paper 2 Section B. But let's see first what are the questions that has come in the Section A of the PSIR Paper 2. And if you see the question, there are five questions in first number, the first 1A, 1-2, 2A, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D and 1E, and these all are compulsory to attempt, right? And let's see, if you see the first question on in the section A, paper 2, right? First question was, discuss the interpretive approach to the study of comparative politics. Now, in introduction, one can begin with the approach. What is the meaning of approach, right? And approach in comparative politics is a tool to understand politics, economy and society of different country. Society in different countries, right? Now, one can now start with interpretive approach. Interpretive approach focus on the meaning, right? Meaning that shapes actions, that shapes identity, right? So one start with interpretive approach. Interpretive approach focuses on meaning that shapes actions and meaning in society and politics. Now look at the salient features of now major exponent. Who are the major exponent of interpretive approach? The major exponent of interpretive approach is are Rudolph and Rudolph, Foucault, Derrida and so on, right? So on. Postmodernist thinkers use the interpretive approach. Now, if you look at this interpretive approach has following features. Interpretive approach has following feature. Features. First, focus on meaning that shapes identity and action in a given society. Now secondly, the second features of this approach is basically it focus on the local belief, right? Focus on local belief, right? Actions and meaning of that action. Now third is methodology. Now if we look at the methodology, right? They use qualitative data as well as quantitative data. Their focus is very much specific and local in nature, right? They, it uses qualitative as well as quantitative data. Qualitative data are basically the stories, the poems, the culture, right? Qualitative data implies stories, poem, right, and culture, right? On the other hand, quantitative data includes numericals, or you can say that numbers, right? They also use case studies, right? It also uses case studies, right? Now different scholars take different case studies, but they don't uniformalize. Diversification is very important. Fourth point is diversification in explanation. Diversification in explanation, right? They don't focus on universalization of analysis rather than diversification of analysis, right? This method not use homogenization rather than diversification of analysis in the study of comparative politics. Now, what are the criticism of this approach? Now, criticism, there are many scholars who criticizes interpretive approach. Right? First, it is a simple general story that can be done by any scholar, right, in given local context. So it is simple that can be done by any scholar. In given context. Now, second is, if you see the second is, this approach focuses on belief and discourse, not on the structure practice. It focuses on belief, meaning, and identities. Rather than a structure of the society, a structure of economy, society, and politics. Right? Now it ignores the social structure. Right? It ignores the structure of social and political system. That is a criticism, that are the criticism leveled against interpretive approach in comparative politics. However, many scholars have used it, like Nietzsche, Foucault, Derrida, and had given multiple interpretation of politics, and that is the end of this answer, right? So this is the way that one should write answer. Now the next question is, explain the central tenets of world system theory. You must be knowing that who had given world system theory. The world system theory had been given by Immanuel Wallerstein, right? And he analyzed the theory of dependency, right? So Immanuel Wallerstein had given world system theory, and he developed the world dependency system, right? Now Lenin, first time, right? Lenin and scholars of Latin American countries developed idea of dependency, right? Now Lenin or Latin American scholars talked about two structure. One is the core and second is periphery. Now what is core? Core is an advanced industrial country. Advanced industrial countries, right? Who have modern political system. And periphery is agrarian or Nile, like US, UK, France, Germany, and so on. Periphery are the countries, in Asia and Africa and Latin America. Countries of Asia and Africa, right? Now these countries are agricultural. Now if you look at periphery, has agrarian economies, they have traditional political system, right? And Marxist scholar argued that there is a relationship between core and periphery, right? The core has actually exploited the periphery, as periphery transferred raw materials, and cores supplied the finished product. Finished product. And this transaction was unequal exchange. Unequal exchange. And this unequal exchange led to development of the core and underdevelopment of the periphery. Underdevelopment of the periphery. Right? Now, Emmanuel Wallerstein added one more structure in the core and periphery. Right? And he talked about the three structures. One is core, periphery, periphery and semi-periphery. Semi-periphery. Now what is core? Core is the same, industrial advanced countries, right? Industrial advanced countries. Modern political system. It has modern political system. Periphery is the same, right? Agrarian countries. Agrarian countries of Asia, Africa and Latin America. Right? Now semi-periphery is a new one and it is actually have the characteristics of the both. It has also modern industrial system as well as traditional agrarian society, agrarian economic system. Now it has also modern political institution as well as traditional institutions. Now if you look at the core has exploited the periphery and the semi-periphery has exploited the periphery, and semi-periphery was exploited by the core. So according to Emmanuel Wallerstein, this is the three core structure in world system theory, where the semi-periphery provides stability in world system, and periphery seems and thinks that it is semi-periphery is also exploited because semi-periphery also provides raw materials, right? Unfinished goods, right? So it is fine. It's very normal that this kind of transactions is very much natural in international politics, right? And this semi-periphery provides stability in world system, right? And this way exploitation continued in the world, right? So Emmanuel Wallerstein argued that the semi-periphery provides stability in the world system. And exploitation continued due to unequal exchange between core, periphery and semi-periphery and semi-periphery. So this is a Marxist interpretation of how unequal development takes place around the globe. So this way one should end the answer. Now let me move to the next question, and next question is, right, the expansionist tendencies of the current Russia regime indicate its intentions for the realization of Great Russia on the line of the Soviet era. Comment. Now this is a question which is based on current, but it is related to also the history of world. Now Russia has revived its economy. Introduction, Russia has revived economy in the 21st century, and its leader like Putin had given new confidence that Russia can regain its older glory like the USSR, right? Now if you look at Russia has made unlimited partnership with China, and due to this stronger alliance, right? Russia feels stronger. Now further, Russia has made several defense treaty with Belarus, with North Korea, right, with Iran in order to defense and security. Russia made several strategic alliance with Belarus, North Korea, right, and Iran to become stronger. Its leader Putin is from the intelligence services, right? Leader Putin is from intelligence services who served in East Germany during collapse of the USSR. Right? And he also thinks that what Gorbachev did was not wrong. He also thinks what Gorbachev has done, was wrong. Russia can regain its older glory. On the other hand, Russia is facing threat from Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, where NATO is expanding. Russia also faced challenges due to expansion of Europe, expansion of NATO in Europe, right? Europe, but Russia also faced challenges due to expansion of Europe, right? NATO tried to include countries like NATO tried to include countries like Ukraine, Sweden, Finland, right? Consequently, there was a security crisis at Russian border. There was security crisis at Russian border. And Russia attacked Ukraine in 2002. In February 2022. This war continued. With the help of due to help of US and EU to Ukraine. Right? Now the US and EU wants this war should continue because it will benefit EU and US. At the same time it will harm Russia. But the war is not going to end. However, the world leaders trying to stop this war as soon as possible. Even Indian Prime Minister, when achieved SCO negotiation at SCO forum or G7, right? It talked about peace. Recently, India, went to Quad Summit and it talked about the peace and prosperity and immediate stop of the Ukraine-Russia war. So therefore, Russia, and this is not something which happening to Russia. Currently, many countries, are becoming expansionist. Like China, right? China is claiming on South China Sea, entire South China Sea, East China Sea, threatening to Taiwan, right? And claiming on territories of India and neighboring country. Right? So this is expansionist tendency is new to the world, and there is a setback to neoliberal policy. There is a deglobalization, there is economic decoupling, there is a financial sanctions by the West on Russia. There are several consequences. Of Russian expansionist policy. like deglobalization, disruption in global supply chain, disruption in global supply chain, crisis of fuel, food and fertilization worldwide. And there is a setback to democracy. There is a setback to democracy due to authoritarian policies taken by Russia and China. Right? China. Russia wants to glorify the USSR. It is becoming expressionist. So this is how you should treat this question. Now let me move to the next question. The next question is explain the various facets of the idealist approach to the study of international relations. Comment on contemporary relevance. There are two questions in this question. There are two parts in the entire question. So first, in 75 marks you have to write explain the various facets of idealist approach to the study of international relation, and secondly comment on contemporary relevance. Now idealist approach to the study of international relations forwarded by Woodrow Wilson, right, who talked about the importance of international institution and international law, right, in order to protect the war and to promote peace and prosperity. So Woodrow Wilson is known as the pioneer of the idealist approach to international relation. He focused on two important dimensions to prevent war and promote peace and prosperity in the world. The first was to establish an international institution where the actor of international society can sit and dialogue, can debate and resolve their issue. So first is international institution. Right? Now through the international institutions, right? Wilson provided 14-point program, and one point was to set up international organization to resolve dispute on the basis of dialogue and debate. Consequently, League of Nations came up, and later on, United Nations came up. Consequently, the League of Nation came up, and later on United Nations organization came up. Right. Now second is international law. International law. Woodrow Wilson believed that we should make this Jew. If you think that this world is a jungle, how we can transform into Jew? By making law, right? Rules, regulation for the behavior in international politics, right? Right. So Wilson believed that through rules, law, regulation, we can transform this anarchic world, into a stable and ordered international political system, right? So this was the basic tenets of Woodrow Wilson. Now look at the contemporary attack on this. The United Nations, UN, and its specialized agencies like IMF, World Bank, right, and liberal political order are under attack. Order is under attack due to Russia-Ukraine war. The established international institution failed to establish peace and order. Russia-Ukraine war is the largest war after the World War II, right? Right. The established institutions and liberal political order failed to establish peace. Right? Russia-Ukraine war is the largest war after the Second World War II. Russia-Ukraine war is the largest war in the post 1945. Right? UN is facing credibility crisis. Right? There is a debate on whether we should transform and change the international order that has been set up in the post World War II and established new international order by including several members of Asia, Africa, Latin America, into the united system, and whether we can make it more democratic, more inclusive, more participatory to establish peace and prosperity. Now let me tell you the next question, and which is related to the last question. The changing global order and ongoing regional conflict, with the global powers taking side, having jeopardized progress towards disarmament in the past. Right? Now you can begin with the new Cold War. The world is actually witnessing Cold War 2.0 between US and China. Right? From the US side, there is a European countries. From the China side, Russia is there. And during the Cold War, so let me begin with the introduction. Right? The world, the global politics, witnessing Cold War 2.0 between US and China. Right? The US has alliance with European countries and UK, and on the other hand, China has a strong relationship with Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Right? Now, in the Cold War 1.0, there was an arms race, but at the time come when there is a disarmament, there was a multiple agreement on disarmament between US and Russia. For example, SALT 1, SALT 2, START 1, START 2, then INF treaties. But due to the Cold War 2.0 and the global conflict between the Russia and Ukraine, and conflict in the Middle East between Israel and the Iran, the proxies like Houthi, Hamas, Hezbollah, has put the global order in danger. Right? Right? In the Cold War 2.0, in the Cold War 1.0, there were arms race between US and USSR, right? But there were some instances, there were several instances where both global power went for disarmament. Like SALT 1, SALT 2, SALT 1 and SALT 2 in 1970s and 80s, INF treaty in 1987, and START 1 and START 2 in 1992. 1 to 92. Right? Due to the Cold War 2.0, due to Cold War 2.0, there is a revival of arms race. Like, European countries like Germany, increase their defense budget. There is a nuclear threat from Russia against Ukraine and its allies. On the other hand, there is a global rise of arms production. There is a global rise of defense production and trade. Therefore, the contemporary politics, has given rise to the new arms race. So, changing global order, right, and ongoing regional conflict, with the global powers taking sides, there is a jeopardize in the progress made towards the disarmament in the past, right? So, conclude it with this: due to changing global order and crisis and several wars like Russia and Ukraine, in Europe, and between Israel and Iran backed Hamas, Houthi and Hezbollah, jeopardize the disarmament of the past. Right, with this you can conclude your answer. Now let me move to the next question. The next question is deglobalization. Now first you have to talk about what is deglobalization. What is deglobalization? Right? So first you have to talk about deglobalization. Right? Actually deglobalization is displacing globalization. Right? So deglobalization, focuses on self-reliance and local solution to the social, economic and political problem. It focuses on importance of nation state. importance of nation state. At contrast, globalization talked about interdependence and complexities in world economic order. Now, talk about globalization for the while one, right? Globalization was product of Bretton Woods system. Bretton Woods system that gave birth to two institutions, namely World Bank and IMF. Later on, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff was concluded in 1948. General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, that is called GATT, was concluded in 1948. It has given immense inflow of trade, commerce, information, technology, labor, and then the world has become interconnected and interdependent. It has promoted free flow of trade, commerce, technology, capital, and labor. Right? Consequently, world became interconnected and interdependent. There's a rise of global supply chain. There was rise of global supply chain and global village emerged. Right? And there is a triumph of globalization, especially in 1990 with the collapse of the USSR. There was a triumph of globalization in 1990s due to collapse of the socialist system and promotion of Washington consensus. Now, in the post 2001, right, and especially 2008 global financial crisis, there was a debate whether countries should go for economic protectionism or not, because there was several challenges to globalization, especially 1973 world oil crisis, and secondly the crisis in 2008. No? So there are, in the 21st century, there are several initiatives. For economic protectionism. Economic protectionism. Protectionism. Right? And there are several causes for deglobalization. Deglobalization. Now, what are the major causes for deglobalization? The first cause was 2008 global financial crisis. Right? In the post 2008 global financial crisis, the world had started, economic protecting their domestic industry against the international market. In the post 2008 world started economic protectionist policy to protect domestic market. Against international threat. Right? Secondly, the COVID pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic. Now, COVID-19 pandemic exposed the loopholes in globalization, right? And countries started doing self-reliance and self-help regarding their protecting their market, health, both, right? So, it exposed loopholes in the global supply chain and in interconnected and interdependent world. Right? Many countries of the world started taking self-help. Many countries started taking policy of self-help. Many countries of the world started taking to protect domestic market and health. Now, the third major region is Russia-Ukraine war, right? The Russia-Ukraine war. Yes, Russia-Ukraine war. Now, if you look at due to Russia-Ukraine war, European countries and Russia has put so many financial sanctions on Russia, and therefore Russia started doing trade in local currency between rupee and ruble, right? With Iran, it is conducting in local currency rather than dollar, international currency, right? So Russia-Ukraine war also put, compel countries to go for deglobalization. Fourth is, new Cold War. New Cold War 2.0 between Russia, between China, US and China. Now, US has put so many sanctions on China. US has put so many sanctions on China, and China retaliated. And this has actually destabilized the global supply chain, right? Now, country is exploring their nearby neighboring country to fulfill their economic demands, right, and their other demands. It's called seashoring countries. So countries are actually focusing on neighboring country to get their supply. Now, what are the impact of deglobalization? If I say, what are the impact of deglobalization? The impact of deglobalization is immense. For example, the world is facing new era of uncertainty and instability, right? And there is a geopolitical risk. There is a geopolitical risk like fuel crisis, climate crisis, right? Slowing global economy, right? Russia-Ukraine war, threat to global supply chain, food, fuel, and fertilizer crisis around the globe, right? So basically, right? So there are multiple challenges posed by deglobalization. Now you can conclude the deglobalization is displacing globalization, but the process is slow and it would be difficult to displace globalization totally. There is a transformation of the world from globalization to a new form of a world that we need to name it. Right? Now let me move to the next question. What are the distinctive features of postmodern state in the advanced capitalist economies? Analyze. What are the distinctive features of the postmodern state in advanced capitalist economies? Right? Analyze. Now, first you start with postmodernism. Postmodernism is a movement created by literature, painting, music, philosophy, right, and art. It attacked the meta-narrative of the created by the modernity. It attacks the meta-narrative theory created by the modernity. So that is a postmodernism. Now it talks about what are distinctive features of the postmodernist state. Now there are several distinct features. There are several distinct features of postmodern state in advanced capitalist economy. capitalist economy. And the first is basically decentralization, right? The first is decentralization. Centralization of state. Now modernity focus on centralization of the state, right? The modern state has very powerful, very centralized authority. Modern states are highly centralized in its authority. The postmodern state focuses on decentralization of authority, right? To resolve the public issue. Now, importance of the local central government was actually postmodern appeal, you can say. The democratic decentralization in the West in 1990 had postmodern impact. Now second is, delegitimization of violence. Now if you look at modern states as very violent, the First World War I, First World War II, Russia-Ukraine war, that are fighting by the state. And the modern state recognizes violence as a appropriate means. But postmodern state delegitimize violence. Delegitimization of violence. Modern state creates violence and somehow it is also product of violence, right? For example, World War I and World War II created many nation states. For example, WW1 and WW2 created several states, and a state uses violence to maintain its legitimacy. Now, the postmodern thinkers actually delegitimize violence, and it talks about peace, and it gives slogan like say no to war. It gives slogan say no to war. Postmodernist gives slogan say no to war, right? So it legitimizes violence. It focuses on diversification. The modernity focuses on homogenization and assimilation. Postmodernists focus on diversification, plurality, diversity. Right? Now fourth is, now it focuses on civil society, role of civil society. Right? For living a good life rather than a state. So these are the basically postmodern state in the capitalist economy. Now let me move to the next question. Right. NAFTA, what was the problem in NAFTA? What were the limitations of NAFTA? How did replaced by the US Mexico-Canada agreement counter them? Explain. Now if you look at NAFTA. NAFTA came in 1992. I'll go brief. And NAFTA was enforced in 1994. Right? And it was one of the most free trade agreement in North American continent. It was a agreement between US, Mexico and Canada. Right? And purpose was lowering trade and tariff. Then free trade policy, free trade policies respecting intellectual property right, IPR. Now what was the problem? What was issues with NAFTA? The issue was agricultural dairy product. Right? Issue was first agricultural dairy product. Now US has no access to the Canada's agricultural dairy product that was solved by the US Mexico Canada agreement in 2018. Second was there is an agricultural dairy product. Then there was a no termination clause. Right? Then third was the automobile product was limited to be produced in the US. So only 22% automobile product to be made in the US. Now in 2018 there was an agreement between US, Mexico and Canada, right? That was enforced on in July 2020, and these restrictions had been removed, right? So here there is no sunset clause, right? No sunset clause. Here there was a sunset clause, right? Here was the no sunset clause. In the new agreement there was sunset clause, and 16 years was a termination period. Right? It is a legal provisions to terminate the agreement, and then there will be new agreement, review of agreement, right? So with this I will end the analysis, and the rest part I will do later on. Thank you so much.